Hi guys, I'm here with Tom from Trailblazer Nutrition, and as always, thanks Tom for joining us.
No worries, good to be back.
Fantastic. We thought we'd grab Tom while he was up in Auckland, because basically we thought it was a great opportunity to really drill down on race day nutrition options for you runners out there. So without further ado, we've actually put out a post earlier on Facebook, and we got some pretty good questions on Facebook. And look, I thought we'd basically start by asking how important is nutrition during training and racing, Tom?
Yeah, it's really important. So, I mean, training and race day nutrition, you can think of them differently. Training nutrition is really important because if you're feeding yourself really well during training, then you're going to be able to train harder, and therefore you're going to be fitter as a result of those training sessions. So the person who uses nutrition really well during their training is going to be fitter at the start line compared to the person who doesn't use nutrition during training. And then the second reason why it's really important is because when you turn up on race day, you need to have practiced your race day nutrition plan. You can't do that without having trialed it. Lots of people don't tolerate lots of different foods. If you're trialing them for the first time on race day, you might wind up with problems. So your your training nutrition is where you want to practice all those things so that you're confident that it's going to work on race day.
Right, fantastic. Good steps.
There's quite a lot to it. Like there's another really important thing that we've learned is that while you're training your muscles, when you're out running, you're training your lungs, you're training your heart, you're training your muscles. If you're eating during that exercise, you're actually also training your gut, and your gut can learn to absorb more carbohydrates from the food that you're eating if you feed it constantly during training.
Fantastic.
So if you're out there eating the carbohydrates during training, on race day, you're going to be able to tolerate more carbohydrates on race day than if you weren't using those carbohydrates during training.
Talking about training your gut, how long would you need to effectively be?
Yeah, so this is a fairly recent scientific development that they've learned, and as far as I know, they haven't specified a time frame. But I think it depends on if you sign up for an event, you're going to be implementing a training program, like a physical training program. So you're going to be doing exactly the same with your nutrition. When you start your physical training program, you want to start implementing your nutrition training program as well, your gut training program.
Fantastic, great. What sort of things should you be eating when you're out there training and racing? Yeah,
so the nutrient that affects your performance is carbohydrates.
Right.
You're burning through a lot of carbohydrates when you're running, and so you have to refuel those carbohydrates. So in terms of the amount that you're having, you should be aiming for about 60 grams an hour plus or minus as kind of just for the general viewer. And it's interesting to think about how much is 60 grams. So I see that you've got some products along here today, so that's really cool. So we grabbed, what was it? Was it 11
apricots.
So that's about a handful of dried apricots. You guys can see in my hand. That's about 25 grams of carbohydrate. Okay, so that's about half of what you might need per hour. So you can munch away on those, and you're going to get, you're going to get halfway there, which is really good. Conveniently, that's exactly the same as a banana of about this side. Like what I would call a medium-sized banana is about 25 grams of carbohydrate. A big banana might be 30 grams of carbohydrate. Now this is really handy because you've got some gels here, and most gels, this is what a gel looks like. You find them in a packet, you can rip the top off them, or some of them come in these block forms, like chews, like lollies. They generally come in about 25 gram servings as well. Okay, so this is what you're looking at. So I personally find gels easier to use when I'm running because I find these a bit hard. They're quite chewy, but bananas are a good option. So I guess in summary, like you want to be eating the carbohydrates, and the type of carbohydrates really is up to you. You've got to choose between, you might really like eating the natural foods, the whole foods when you're training, or you might really want some trimmed down version of that carbohydrates. Something like a gel is going to work for you.
And I imagine for different distances, for example, a half marathon versus a full marathon, some options might be more practical than others.
Yeah, totally. So you get something called taste fatigue. So that's when if you're just having this one gel the whole time, if you're doing a marathon which lasts 4 hours, you're going to get pretty sick of that. But you might be able to handle it for a 1.5, 2 hour half marathon. So a lot of people, when they do marathons, they'll take a range of different choices. So they might have a banana, they might nibble away at that, they might have the apricots there to nibble away on over the run, but you know, they might have 4 or 5 gels to you know, be the meat and potatoes of what they're doing.
Right.
In terms of like purely, do you need different things for a half marathon versus a marathon? The answer really is no. It's more of a practical thing. You know, you still need carbohydrates, and these are the options that you have for your carbohydrates.
Fantastic. So we've got 4 good options there. Obviously, very real food versus chews and things like gels.
Yeah, and you can also get sports bars, which are kind of what I consider them sort of halfway between your real food and your gels. They're still going to contain a little bit of protein and a little bit of fat and a little bit of fibre, which can be a bit hard to digest when you're running. But again, they're a different taste, they're a different texture, and they're quite handy to hold and just munch on as you're going. A bit different to a gel where they're a bit sticky. So once you open your gel, you've really got to knock it all back in one go. And there are heaps of recipes out there for things like rice cakes, flapjacks and things like that, which you can make yourself.
Fantastic.
And we haven't talked about sports drinks, which usually contain carbohydrates as well, and they're going to contribute towards that as well.
So, for example, we've got some of Goo's Roctane and Ultra Endurance. Now that's an electrolyte, right?
Yep. So that'll have electrolytes in it, but that's also got carbohydrates in it, I imagine, if it's the one that I'm thinking of.
Sure does.
Yep. So it's got so they give you electrolytes to replace what you lose in sweat, but it's the carbohydrates as your fuel.
Great. Okay.
If you're thinking about maybe you're a car, then the electrolytes might be the oil to your engine, but the petrol is your carbohydrates.
Interesting. So electrolytes are the oil, keeps everything moving together, whereas the fuel is the carbs.
Yeah.
They're going to get you from A to B.
Yep. And if you run out, then you're going to stop.
Right. Yeah. Keen to know what's the best thing to eat prior to a run. How much time should you leave between breakfast and race starting?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. And I guess it's easiest to talk about race day because prior to training it varies. Like what to eat before training varies on what your goals of that training session are. And that's quite a big topic, which is we'll leave for now. So what to eat before a race is really, I'm actually going to go back to training because it's what you've been doing before your long races. Like it's important to stick to that routine. You know, you don't want to try something on race day for the first time. You know, you don't want to have a completely different breakfast compared to what you've been having during your long runs. So the guidelines are high in carbohydrates. You're looking at least 1 gram of carbohydrates per kg of your body weight. So to put that into context, if you're a 60 kilogram runner, then 4 Wheat Bix is 40 grams. You're going to put some milk, you're going to get some there, and then if you put a piece of fruit or maybe some yogurt on that, then you're looking at around 60 grams of carbohydrate. So you want at least that, but you also want to be doing what you've been doing during training. And how long before you eat? Is the guidelines are 1 to 4 hours, which is a pretty big range. So again, you've got to kind of find what suits you. For some people, if you're having a really big meal 1 hour before, you might be cutting it a bit fine and you might not feel so great when you're standing on the start line. Around 2 hours, I think, is that sweet spot. The reason why they say 4 hours is 4 hours, you're going to be feeling fine at the start line, but you're getting to the point where you almost might need to top up again if you leave it much longer than that.
I see.
So what I recommend people doing is looking at the time that their event starts. So I think the Auckland Marathon, because of the issues with the Harbour Bridge, it starts really early, like 6 a.m. or something maybe. So really, you need to be getting up and practicing during training, eating at 4:30 a.m. and going on a run at 6 a.m. so that your body's used to that.
So practice getting up early for that race, testing your nutrition options early. I
100% recommend that. I mean, for me, what I did when I have a marathon, the week before that, and I'm a dietitian, so I take it probably a little bit too seriously, but that entire week leading up to the marathon, I get up what I'm going to do on race day, and I eat what time I'm going to eat on race day, and I eat what I'm going to eat on race day every day. And I do that to get into the routine. I also do it kind of so I know what my bowels are going to be doing.
Right.
Okay, so I can get into a
important.
routine. I know, like, should I be panicking if I haven't gone, or is
no one wants an ambush,
or is it normal for me to have not gone to the toilet?
Right.
So these are all things which your food is going to affect.
Yes.
And if you do something different on race day, all of a sudden you're going to have different results, and that could be through your performance to when you need to go to the toilet, to how you feel during and before the race.
Often you have people that might ask, hey, or might comment different nutrition options, respond differently to how they will affect their stomach in different ways. Is that just basically a sign of the gut not being trained to be able to adopt to that food option? Or
they might not be used to it. I think it depends on when you're looking at making these changes. But if you're thinking, hell, this food's not working for me and I'm having these problems, but it's 2 days before race day, you're making those decisions too late. You've really got to realise that weeks and months before your race, so you can make the changes in advance and get your body used to the new thing. I think the body for breakfast really likes routine, and it's going to want it's going to want to know what's coming, and naturally it's going to want foods which it tolerates. If you're, like, I'm talking about carbohydrates, but if you have 2 eggs and bacon every morning for breakfast, then maybe you should stick at having your 2 eggs and bacon, because that's what works for you.
Good. Another question we had was, what should you be eating the night before a big race? As it should be, you go out to Macca's or Pizza Hut. I mean, you hear all sorts of stories about carbo loading. And
So carbo loading has some pretty good science behind it. It's pretty well proven.